Hello. Can I just check you can hear me? And as a word of warning, yes, I should be louder than I was with a better quality mic. Cool. Right. Yay. Yeah, it turns out that at some point in the past, Windows decided to take my mic to 8% volume. For context, it's now on 35. No wonder it's been slightly tinny and a bit weird. I am really sorry. Okay. Right. Let's get this show on the road. Apologies for the late start. I had a phone call I couldn't avoid. Right. Oh, okay. That's what we're doing today, is it? I see. I perceive the image. Thank you. Right. I know. I'm used to it reshuffling my audio onto any random audio device being anywhere. Memorably, at least once on something that wasn't actually plugged in, which is quite impressive. Hello, Jesper's Tales. You are very welcome. So, I am live on both YouTube and Twitch. I hope. I think I'm live on YouTube. She says, sneaking off to check. Yes. Slightly behind, but yes, looks like that's live. Cool. Cool. Hello, Jem. So yes, hello, Jem. Hello, Chrono. Hello, Jespers. Hello, Kate B. Hello, Vila Katzen. Nice to see you. And hello, Hiram. And no, I don't know where that voice came from. You're going back to work on Thursday, Kate B. Yay. Oh, I'm glad your recovery's gone well. Vila Katzen, thank you. Oh, much appreciated. And yes, Geiger's going absolutely loopy in the bottom right. Okay. Thank you so much indeed. Okay, right. Now, we are Phoenix and carpeting. So, the story so far. A group of 4 arsonist children decided it was a good idea to do outdoor fireworks. Oh, yeah, okay, now I can see your point. Yeah, that's got to be a good move. But yes, don't rush what you can't do yet. Yes, story so far, arson, yes. Group of 4 children who previously had some adventures with a wish-granting imp called the Samiad in 5 Children and It, have continued their winning streak by deciding that they needed to test their fireworks for bonfire night in the nursery. So this was apparently a good idea. It was all going fine, to be honest, until they decided that one recalcitrant firework required paraffin. So basically somebody was using matches, somebody else was using a little bowl of paraffin, a jar of paraffin, and just threw it on there. So petrol bomb. And as a result of general fire, they came into the possession of a new carpet, which it turned out contained a phoenix egg, which they were thrilled about because fire. So the phoenix is slightly out of touch, has basically been in the carpet for 2,000 years because it got bored with every few hundred years having to incinerate and reincarnate itself. So it was after a change of scene and asked the carpet to grant it a wish, the carpet being a wishing carpet. And probably the smartest character in the entire story. So the kids are normal-ish, nice-ish, but very real. They're not perfect little paragons. There's also a fifth child called the Lamb, and he is described as the baby. But I get the feeling he's like 18 months too, maybe. All we've really seen of him in this book is he was being dressed up in his miniature coachman's coat and tricorn hat to go for an outing. And if anyone has any idea how adorable that would be, I think we can probably detect the age of the lamb. But the kids all call each other by nicknames. The baby's always the last one born, even if they're like 15 by now. Yeah, absolutely. So yes, the kids all have nicknames based on animals, hence the lamb. We also have things like panther, squirrel. So don't worry too much if people are referred to by other names. But these kids do come off as quite realistic. Now, warning. I put a content warning up anyway, because it was written in 1904. So, you're looking at era-appropriate language and mentalities for that period. This chapter in particular has some slight imperial undertones rather to it. It's more that the children misinterpret something, and it's based on their ignorance, but it's not the most polite thing in the world. It's not the most egregious thing. We're not talking as bad as Enid Blyton or something. Your daughter taught you off for calling you your baby. I'm 7, mummy. Oh, bless. Okay. So, assuming I am not either inaudible or blowing everybody's eardrums out, we shall begin. The Phoenix and the Carpet, Chapter 3, The Queen Cook. It was on a Saturday that the children made their first glorious journey on the wishing carpet. Unless you're too young to read at all, you will know that the next day must have been Sunday. Sunday at 18 Camden Terrace, Camden Town, was always a very pretty day. Father always brought home flowers on Saturdays so that the breakfast table was extra beautiful. In November, of course, the flowers were chrysanthemums, yellow and coppery coloured. Then there were always sausages on toast for breakfast, and these are rapture after 6 days of Kentish Town Road eggs at 14 a shilling. Hey Molly, welcome, you've literally timed it perfectly. On this particular Sunday there were fowls for dinner, a kind of food that's generally kept for birthdays and grand occasions, and there was an angel pudding, when rice and milk and oranges and white icing do their best to make you happy. After dinner, Father was very sleepy indeed, because he'd been working hard all week, but he did not yield to the voice that said go and have an hour's rest. He nursed the lamb, who had a horrid cough that cook said was whooping cough as sure as eggs, and he said, "Come along, kiddies, I've a ripping book from the library called The Golden Age, and I'll read it to you." Mother settled herself on the drawing-room sofa and said that she could listen quite nicely with her eyes shut. The lamb snuggled into the armchair corner of Daddy's arm, and others got into a happy heap on the hearthrug. God, they'll set fire to it! At first, of course, there were too many feet and knees and shoulders and elbows, but real comfort was actually settling down on them, and the Phoenix and the Carpet were put away in the back top shelves of their minds. Beautiful things that could be taken out and played with later. When a surly knock came at the drawing-room door. It opened an angry inch, and the cook's voice said, "Please, may I speak to you for a minute?" Mother looked at Father with a desperate expression. Then she put her pretty sparkly Sunday shoes down from the sofa and stood up in them and sighed. "There's good fish in the sea," said Father cheerfully, and it was not till much later that the children understood what he meant. Mother went out into the passage, which is called the hall, where the umbrella stand is, and the picture of the monarch of the glen in the yellow shining frame, with brown spots on the monarch from the damp in the house before last, and there was cook, very red and damp in the face, and with a clean apron tied on all crooked over the dirty one she had dished up those dear, delightful chickens in. She stood there, and she seemed to get redder and damper, and she twisted the corner of her apron round her fingers, and she said very shortly and fiercely, "If you please, ma'am, I should wish to leave at my day month." Mother leaned against the hat-stand. The children could see her looking pale through the crack of the door, because she had been very kind to the cook, and had given her a holiday only the day before, and it seemed so very unkind of the cook to want to go like this, and on a Sunday too. "Why, what's the matter?" Mother said. "It's them children," the cook replied, and somehow the children all felt that they had known it from the first. They did not remember having done anything extra wrong, but it is so frightfully easy to displease a cook. "It's them children. Them that's let their new carpet in their room, covered thick with mud, both sides, beastly yellow mud, and sakes alive knows where they got it, and all that muck to clean up on a Sunday. It's not my place, and it's not my intention, so I don't deceive you, ma'am, but for them limbs, which is, if they ever was, it's not a bad place, though I says it, and I wouldn't wish to leave, but—" "I'm very sorry," said Mother gently. "I will speak to the children, and you had better think it over. And if you really wish to go, tell me tomorrow." Next day, Mother had a quiet talk with Cook, and Cook said she didn't mind if she stayed on a bit, just to see. But meantime, the question of the muddy carpet had been gone into thoroughly by Father and Mother. Jane's candid explanation that the mud had come from the bottom of a foreign tower where there was buried treasure was received with such chilling disbelief that the others limited their defence to an expression of sorrow, and of a determination not to do it again. But Father said, and Mother agreed with him because mothers have to agree with fathers, and not because it was her own idea. You sneaky. That children who coated a carpet on both sides with thick mud, and when they were asked for an explanation could only talk silly nonsense, that meant Jane's truthful statement, were not fit to have a carpet at all, and indeed shouldn't have one for a week. So the carpet was brushed, with tea leaves too, which was the only comfort Anthea could think of, and folded up and put away in the cupboard at the top of the stairs, and Daddy put the key in his trouser pocket. "Till Saturday," said he. "Never mind," said Anthea. "We've got the Phoenix." But as it happened, they hadn't. The Phoenix was nowhere to be found, and everything had suddenly settled down from the rosy wild beauty of magic happenings to the common damp brownness of ordinary November life in Camden Town. And there was the nursery floor, all bare boards in the middle and brown oilcloth round the outside, and the bareness and yellowness of the middle floor showed up the black beetles with terrible distinctiveness, when the poor things came out in the evening, as usual, to try to make friends with the children. But the children never would. "You've got oilcloth on the floor, really? Don't put flammable stuff near these people. Have we not learned? Don't let them loose with explosives and flames and anything even vaguely warm." Yes, the beetles are... I don't think they're cockroaches. Just black beetles. No, either way, not something you really want when you're sitting on the floor. Yes, the balance is it flammable or is it stain-proof? I think it's both. On the bright side, at least the kids didn't burn the beetles. It's the Victorian era, everything is flammable or radioactive or both. Sometimes they even do it deliberately. The Sunday ended in gloom, which even junket for supper in the blue Dresden bowl could hardly lighten at all. Kids like these are why Scotchgard was invented. Yes! Also manacles and possibly dog crates. Next day the lamb's cough was worse. It certainly seemed very whoopy, and the doctor came in his brougham carriage. Everyone tried to bear up under the weight of the sorrow which it was to know that the wishing carpet was locked up and the Phoenix mislaid. A good deal of time was spent in looking for the phoenix. "It's a bird of its word," said Anthea. "I'm sure it's not deserted us. But you know it had a most awfully long fly from wherever it was to near Rochester and back, and I expect the poor thing's feeling tired out and wants rest. I'm sure we may trust it." The others tried to feel sure of this too, but it was hard. "You think whooping cough is more worrisome than the phoenix?" Yep. Also, back on the rise. So if you've not had your vaccinations for it, or if your kids have not been vaccinated, bloody get them done. Yes, I don't care if that comes up as being a bit touchy. I had to put up with a temporary manager who decided to come in with whooping cough, just because he felt it was more dynamic than staying at home sick, despite being signed off work. Yeah. There were a lot of people talking to their doctors about getting boosters and such. I just avoided him. Okay, apologies for the digression. It's very important you got the booster right before your nephew was born. Yeah, it's a good idea. I think I'm reasonably sure that in the UK, pregnant women can get the vaccine towards the tail end of their pregnancy, and the babies can then get a booster fairly shortly thereafter. So they're born with the antibodies, and then they get the booster. Because it is not something you want. You get it around 28, 30 weeks. Thank you very much, Bonsai Jim. You boosted a couple of years ago as well on general principle. Yeah, I mean, when you can break a rib with it, I mean, I tore a muscle just with normal flu, so frankly, I have no desire to end up with that. Okay. No one could be expected to feel very kindly towards the cook, since it was entirely through her making such a fuss about a little foreign mud that the carpet had been taken away. "She might have told us," said Jane, "and Panther and I would have cleaned it with tea leaves." "She's a cantankerous cat," said Robert. "I shan't say what I think about her," said Anthea primly, "because it would be evil-speaking, lying and slandering." "Not lying to say she's a disagreeable pig and a beastly blue-nosed boswas," said Cyril, who had read the Eyes of Light and intended to talk like Tony as soon as he could teach Robert to talk like Paul. And all the children, even Anthea, agreed that even if she wasn't a blue-nosed boswas, they wished Cook had never been born. But I ask you to believe that they didn't do all the things on purpose which so annoyed the cook during the following week, though I dare say the things would not have happened if the cook had been a favourite. You heard something other than cantankerous cat? Now I'm scared. This is a mystery. Explain it if you can. The things that had happened were as follows. Sunday, discovery of foreign mud on both sides of the carpet. Monday, licorice put on to boil with aniseed balls in a saucepan. Anthea did this because she thought it would be good for the lamb's cough. The whole thing forgotten, and the bottom of the saucepan burned out. It was the little saucepan lined with white that was kept for the baby's milk. Oh! No, I did not say that, Hiram. I did not use "see you next Tuesday." And neither did he Nesbit, trust me. I mean, she's harder core than people realise, but she isn't that. No. I'm sorry, but licorice and aniseed put on to boil is just an act of aggression in and of itself, surely. Tuesday. A dead mouse found in pantry. Fish slice taken to dig grave with. By regrettable accident, fish slice broken. Defence. That cook oughtn't to keep dead mice in pantries. Vera Katzen. You weren't here for the first week of arson. These children, if there is anything to be done involving fire, flame or hot, they will be doing it. And apparently the family have very little restriction. Wednesday. Chopped suet left on kitchen table. Robert added chopped soap, but says he thought the suet was soap too. Thursday. Broke the kitchen window by falling against it during a perfectly fair game of bandits in the area. Friday. Stopped up the grating of the kitchen sink with putty and filled sink with water to make a lake to sail paper boats in. Went away and left the tap running. Kitchen hearthrug and cook's shoes ruined. Why is the kitchen open to the kids, though? We did not have a cook, but Mum used to let us use the stove alone. Yeah. I mean, I was taught how to use the stove, well, at least the hob and oven, fairly early on. And I suppose from 11 we did HE at school, so we were cooking and baking and what have you from then. But, yeah, cook, I don't know if they have any maids, but cook seems to be it, as far as servants go. So it could well be that she's basically having to, literally chief cook and bottle washer. But presumably, yeah, it's when she isn't working that the children are wandering in. You were taught to cook early enough that you don't remember it, but not allowed to use the stove or oven alone until you were 9 or 10. Yeah. I mean, I think Cyril's 15, I want to say. He's the eldest, and I think he is definitely a teenager, him and Robert. If she's cleaning the carpet, she's the only help they've got. Yeah. This is a middle-class family. They have servants, but they live in a rented house, and they've only got the one servant. In an era when it's either wood-fired stoves or possibly a gas supply that needs matches to light. And, yeah, arson is the thing. These guys do fire. Children should not be left alone near any flame, including the gas lights. Yes, I know. It's still the time of children as little adults and not wanted around. Yeah, I mean, they're basically parked in the breakfast room, which is the basement, of course, or up in the nursery. It's mother and father, and father's out at work all day, and we're not entirely clear what mother does, apart from take care of the lamb, which, to be fair, is a big job. You're not used to trusting them today with candles. As someone who once managed to melt at the top of her radio alarm clock because she completely forgot that a candle plate had to be heat-proof. Yeah, I can relate. That was a while ago. That was quite a long time ago. Send them down to mine. Can't get any trouble down there. Really? You want to send them down the coal mine? Full of flammable gases? This lot? Oh, God. Can you imagine? Well, we did have a deep cast mine, and now we have open cast. Why? Oh, don't worry about it. Children. You went to a friend's house in primary school and accidentally burnt a hole in your friend's carpet because you didn't know how portable heaters worked. That's easily done. See also the old style of paraffin heaters, which were not sealed units so much as they are now. And if you tip them, oh yeah, they leak. Can't get in any more trouble after going down there because catastrophe. Could be a tin mine, yep. Tin mine pretty much limited to Cornwall though. It was in the 90s. It was, I suppose, quite a while ago. Okay. On Saturday, the carpet was restored. There had been plenty of time during the week to decide where it should be asked to go when they did get it back. Mother had gone over to Granny's and had not taken the lamb because he had a bad cough, which cook repeatedly said was whooping cough as sure as eggs is eggs. "But we'll take him out, a ducky darling," said Anthea. "We'll take him somewhere where you can't have whooping cough. Don't be so silly, Robert. If he does talk about it, no one will take any notice. He's always talking about things he's never seen." Well, I think that's just aged the lamb a bit, hasn't it? So they dressed the lamb and got themselves in out-of-door clothes, and are kidnapping their baby brother. Just think about this. They're babysitting their baby brother. I mean, it's not unheard of. You know, they're going to be over 12, but it's most of them. But I feel that social services may want to visit this family. So they dressed the lamb and themselves in out-of-door clothes, and the lamb chuckled and coughed and laughed and coughed again, poor dear, and all the chairs and tables were moved off the carpet by the boys while Jane nursed the lamb, and Anthea rushed through the house in one last wild hunt for the missing phoenix. Somewhere you can't have whooping cough sounds ominously similar to "you're going to walk the Rainbow Bridge" to me. Don't curse your baby brother like this. Social services a thing, yeah. Yeah, it kind of, except they're not poor enough. It would be more charitable, but I think there was a service, but it was more ostensibly geared towards a sort of patriarchal welfare. You know, checking up on them to make sure that they're looking after their children properly, and then an orphanage if they weren't. To be honest, you really don't want these kids going to an orphanage. A, because no, bad in the era, and also because they would burn it down and reduce the housing capability for orphan children. "It's no use waiting for it," she said, reappearing breathless in the breakfast room. "But I know it hasn't deserted us. It's a bird of its word." This is why parents put their children into all the activities to keep them too busy for arson. Yeah. "Quite so," said the gentle voice of the phoenix from beneath the table. Everyone fell on its knees and looked up, and there was the phoenix perched on a crossbar of wood that ran across under the table, and had once supported a drawer in the happy days before the drawer had been used as a boat, and its bottom unfortunately trodden out by Raggett's really reliable school boots on the feet of Robert. "I've been here all the time," said the phoenix, yawning politely behind its claw. "If you wanted me, you should have recited the Ode of Invocation. It's 7,000 lines long and written in very pure and beautiful Greek." "Couldn't you tell us in English?" asked Anthea. "It's rather long, isn't it?" said Jane, jumping the lamb on her knee. "Couldn't you make a short English version, like Tate and Brady?" "Oh, come along, do," said Robert, holding out his hand. "Come along, good old phoenix." "Good old beautiful phoenix," it corrected shyly. You have to think if you were taught arson, at least you knew when and where to do it with least risk of damage. Ideally. I mean, we got taught how to make a fire at guides, so I was 10 and taught the correct use of firelighters. "Good old beautiful phoenix, then. Come along," said Robert impatiently, with his hand still held out. The phoenix fluttered at once onto his wrist. "This amiable youth," it said to the others, "has miraculously been able to put the whole meaning of the 7,000 lines of Greek invocation into one English hexameter. A little misplaced, some of the words, but... Oh, come along, good old beautiful phoenix. Not perfect, I admit, but not bad for a boy his age." "Well now then," said Robert, stepping back onto the carpet with the golden phoenix on his wrist. You look like the king's falconer, said Jane, sitting down on the carpet with the baby on her lap. Robert tried to go on looking like it. Cyril and Anthea stood on the carpet. We shall have to get back before dinner, said Cyril, or cook will blow the gaff. She hasn't sneaked since Sunday, said Anthea. Robert was beginning when the door burst open and the cook, fierce and furious, came in like a whirlwind and stood on the corner of the carpet with a broken basin in one hand and a threat in the other, which was clenched. Look here, she cried, my only basin, and what the powers am I to make the beefsteak and kidney pudding in that your ma ordered for your dinners? You don't deserve no dinners, so you don't. I'm awfully sorry, cook, said Anthea gently. It was my fault, and I forgot to tell you about it. It got broken when we were telling our fortunes with melted lead, you know, and I meant to tell you. God, it just gets worse. Honest to God. It really does get worse and worse. What the hell? Sorry. Oh, I do not remember half of this from the kids' TV adaptation I saw. At this point, you're impressed they're still alive. I did have a book on experiments when I was 8 or 9, definitely primary school, which did involve melting lead and then using acid to etch it to show the crystals. And that was in a book of experiments aimed at a child my age. I think possibly it was a test. Would that be plumbermancy? Divination method including lead. It is now. Divination method including plumbers. Hang on, noting that down. The lead, not the plumbers. Right, that's going to confuse the hell out of me. Telling fortunes with wax, pouring molten wax into water, the shape of the wax will tell your future. Well, you see, that's not nearly dangerous enough for this lot. Your dad remembers melting lead from an old lamp when he was a kid. Okay. What? Why? Gives a new meaning to PB&J sandwich. Oh, okay. Yep, you win that. Good lordy dicks. Okay. Mind you, one of my colleagues, who was much, much older than me, used to describe how they had gone and collected ammo from old bomb sites in London. That's how old he was. And they would then find shells and things and put them in a vice and beat them with a hammer until they went off. Your brother would try and excuse anything with it's an experiment. Yes, I do remember the reactor. Oh, wasn't that a student one? Possibly. David Hahn. Okay. Meant to tell me, replied the cook. She was red with anger, and really I don't wonder. Meant to tell? Well, I mean to tell too. I've held my tongue this week, though, because the missus said to me quiet like, we mustn't expect old heads on young shoulders. But now I shan't hold it no longer. There was the soap you put in our pudding, and me and Eliza never so much as breathed it to your ma, though well we might, and the saucepan and the fish slice, and my gracious cats alive, what have you got that blessed child dressed up in his outdoors for? We weren't going to take him out, said Anthea. At least, she stopped short, for though they weren't going to take him out in the Kentish town road, they certainly intended to take him elsewhere. But not at all where cook meant when she said out. This confused the truthful Anthea. Out, said the cook. Then I'll take care you don't, and she snatched the lamb from the lap of Jane, while Anthea and Robert caught her by the skirts and apron. "Look here," said Cyril, in stern desperation. "Will you go away and make your pudding in a pie dish or a flower pot or a hot water can or something?" "Not me," said the cook briefly. "And leave this precious poppet for you to give his death a cold to?" "I warn you," said Cyril solemnly, "beware, ere yet it may be too late." "Late yourself, the little popsy wopsy," said the cook with angry tenderness. "They shan't take it out, no more they shan't. And where did you get that there yellow fowl?" She pointed to the phoenix. Even Anthea saw that unless the cook lost her situation, the loss would be theirs. "I wish," she said suddenly, "we were on a sunny southern shore where there can't be any whooping cough." She said it through the frightened howls of the lamb and the sturdy scoldings of the cook, and instantly the giddy go-round and falling-lift feeling swept over the whole party, and the cook sat down flat on the carpet, holding the screaming lamb tight to her stout print-covered self, and calling on St. Bridget to help her. She was an Irish woman. I could have done with knowing that a bit sooner. She's an Irish woman who's been in London a long time. Don't judge. Melting lead to tell your fortune was pretty common in Germany as a New Year's tradition. Okay. That's not one I knew. So popular you could buy lead to melt in until 2018. I feel kind of hard done by now. Ours was mostly based on apple peel. In theory. I never actually did it. You were supposed to peel an apple to give it one long string and throw that down, and it would apparently form the letter of who, first letter of who you were supposed to marry. Remember, Kai, you use wax for that in Poland. Yeah, you see, again, slightly more sensible than liquid metal. So things are going from bad to worse for this family. Oh dear. S is quite common. Kate B. We did it at school once. As we were, it was either as we were coming up to Christmas or Halloween. So we all did it, and I think at least one person got an M. I kept getting S's, which kind of makes sense, I suppose. And then you always got the one showy git who had worked out how to go round it with a knife first and make a string like 1 millimetre wide. Wax is definitely the healthier option, but then again, Germans also eat raw pork, so really you live on the edge. It's very specific raw pork, though, isn't it? It's like nobody should eat non-sushi grade salmon raw. For much the same reason. Right, where am I? Sorry, I've lost my place. They've made their wish, and I'm sure this will go completely fine. And she's still not Irish. I'm very sorry, I can't do Irish. Although I can't do Irish for more than a couple of lines. So, just imagine that, I've got this whole, what's that then, Ted? The moment the tipsy-topsy-turvy feeling stopped, the cook opened her eyes, gave one sounding screech, and shut them again. And Anthea took the opportunity to get the desperately howling lamb into her own arms. "It's all right," she said. "Own Panther's got you. Look at the trees and the sand and the shells and the great big tortoises. Oh dear, how hot it is." Did they remember to save one wish to get home? You hope they do. Oh, okay, well, yeah. Are we keeping a track? So they're 1 in so far. It certainly was, for the trusty carpet had laid itself out on the southern shore that was sunny and no mistake, as Robert remarked. The greenest of green slopes led up to glorious groves, where palm trees and all the tropical flowers and fruits that you read of in Westward Ho and Fair Play were growing in rich profusion. Between the green slope and the blue sea lay a stretch of sand that looked like a carpet of jewelled cloth of gold, for it was not greyish as our northern sand is, but yellow and changing, opal-coloured like sunshine and rainbows. And at the very moment when the wild, whirling, blinding, deafening, tumbling upside-downness of the carpet moving stopped, The children had the happiness of seeing 3 large live turtles waddle down to the edge of the sea and disappear in the water. And it was hotter than you can possibly imagine, unless you think of ovens on the baking day. Everyone, without an instant's hesitation, took off its London in November outdoor clothes, and Anthea took off the lamb's highwayman blue coat and his 3-cornered hat, and then his jersey, and then the lamb himself suddenly slipped out of his little blue tight breeches and stood up happy and hot in his little white shirt. "I'm sure it's much warmer than the seaside in the summer," said Anthea. "Mother always lets us go barefoot then." So the lamb's shoes and socks and gaiters came off, and he stood digging his happy naked pink toes into the golden smooth sand. "I'm a little white duck dicky," said he, "a little white duck dicky what swims," and splashed quacking into a sandy pool. "Let him," said Anthea. "It can't hurt him. Oh, how hot it is." The cook suddenly opened her eyes and screamed, shut them again, screamed again, opened her eyes once more and said, "Why, drat my cat's alive, what is all this? It's a dream, I expect." "Well, it's the best I ever dreamed. I'll look it up in the dream book tomorrow. Seaside and trees and a carpet to sit on. I never did." "Look here," said Cyril, "it isn't a dream, it's real." "Oh, yes," said the cook, "they always says that in dreams." "It's real, I tell you," said Robert said, stamping his foot. "I'm not going to tell you how it's done, because that's our secret." He winked heavily at each of the others in turn. "But you wouldn't go away and make that pudding, so we had to bring you, and I hope you like it." "I do, and no mistake," said the cook unexpectedly. "And it being a dream don't matter. What I say, and I will say, if it's my last word, that of all the aggravating little varmints—" "Calm yourself, my good woman," said the Phoenix. "Oh, sorry, wrong person. Calm yourself, my good woman," said the Phoenix. "Good woman indeed," said the cook. "Good woman yourself." Then she saw who it was who had been spoken. "Well, if ever," she said. "This is something like a dream. Yellow fowls are talking and all. I never heard of such, but never did I think to see this day." "You think the lamb has to be 3 or so, maybe 4. He's still kind of in arms, so I think 3. Yeah, I think 4 might be a bit big. I think they're not really letting him walk around, so I'd have put high 2, maybe low 3. You know, sort of the 36 months. Roughly. But we don't really get much of a guide. "Well then," said Cyril impatiently, "sit here and see the day now. It's a jolly fine day. Here, you others, a council." They walked along the shore till they were out of earshot of the cook, who still sat gazing about her with a happy, dreamy, vacant smile. Yeah, he's also sick, so that does give a bit of regression temporarily. That's true. Very true. "Look here," said Cyril, "we must roll the carpet up and hide it, so that we could get at it at any moment. The lamb can be getting rid of his whooping cough all morning. Yeah, that's how it works. And we can look about, and if the savages on this island are cannibals, we'll hook it and take her back. And if not, we'll leave her here." "Is that being kind to servants and animals, like the clergyman said?" asked Jane. "No, she isn't kind," retorted Cyril. "Well, anyway," said Anthea, "the safest thing is to leave the carpet there with her sitting on it. Perhaps it'll be a lesson to her, and anyway, if she thinks it's a dream, it won't matter what she says when she gets home." So the extra coats and hats and mufflers were piled on the carpet. Cyril shouldered the well and happy lamb. The Phoenix perched on Robert's wrist, and the party of explorers prepared to enter the interior. "If the cook's with you, who's making dinner?" "Ah, well, The grassy slope was smooth, but under the trees there were tangled creepers with bright, strange-shaped flowers, and it was not easy to walk. I'm calling Triffids. "We ought to have an explorer's axe," said Robert. "I shall ask Father to give me one for Christmas." God almighty. How have you lived? this long, kids. All this to Hellfire and Dalmatians. Plot armour, absolutely. I now need to actually read Five Children in It. I haven't read it since I was a small kid. And I feel that the adaptations perhaps did not cover quite what the books do. Fire is enough, you don't also need weapons. At least one of them's got a knife. Because penknives actually mean something in those days. Not like my penknife, which is kind of pathetic. Okay. There were curtains of creepers with scented blossoms hanging from the trees, and brilliant birds darted about quite close to their faces. Do we know if they had other siblings that didn't survive? Because that would make sense if they were just the ones who survived this far. You reckon that they are the red dots on that Spitfire diagram? I think they have to cut it. You can't have a how to commit arson during family viewing time. Oh, you're not familiar with UK TV, are you? You would be amazed what you can have during visiting time, viewing time. Literal survivor bias, kids. Yes, now that's a t-shirt. The survivor bias, kids. I can't decide if that's a Yogang from Night City or just something I want on the t-shirt along with the one that I got given a while ago on, which was a parody of the Ladybird books of how to summon demons. Now tell me honestly, said the Phoenix, are there any birds here handsomer than I am? Don't be afraid of hurting my feelings. I'm a modest bird, I hope. Not one of them, said Robert with conviction. With a conviction. Is a patch upon you. I was never a vain bird, said the Phoenix, but I own that you confirm my own impression. I will take a flight. It circled in the air for a moment, and returning to Robert's wrist, went on, There's a path to the left. And there was. So now the children went on through the woods more quickly and comfortably, the girls picking flowers and the lamb inviting the pretty Dickies to observe that he himself was a little white real water wet duck. And all this time he hadn't had whooping cough once. I think he's probably allergic to something in the house, probably paraffin. The path turned and twisted, and always threading their way amid a tangle of flowers, the children suddenly passed a corner and found themselves in a forest clearing, where there were a lot of pointed huts, the huts, as they knew at once, of savages. The boldest heart beat more quickly. Suppose they were cannibals. It was a long way back to the carpet. You just know that they've been reading some really dodgy adventure books, don't you? Hadn't we better go back? Said Jane. Go now, she said, and her voice trembled a little. Suppose they eat us. Nonsense, pussy, said Cyril firmly. Look, there's a goat tied up. That shows they don't eat people. Wow. Correlation is not causation, sir. I think we're into false logic there. Let's go on and say we're missionaries, Robert suggested. Well, that's a good way to actually get eaten, even if they're not cannibals. I shouldn't advise that, said the Phoenix very earnestly. Why not? Well, for one thing, it isn't true, replied the Golden Bird. It was while they stood hesitating on the edge of the clearing that a tall man suddenly came out of one of the huts. He had hardly any clothes, and his body all over was a dark and beautiful coppery colour, just like the chrysanthemums father had brought home on Saturday. In his hand he held a spear. The whites of his eyes and the white of his teeth were the only light things about him, except where the sun shone on his shiny brown body. It looked white too. If you will look carefully at the next shiny savage you meet with next to nothing on, you will see at once if the sun happens to be shining at the time that I am right about this. There's some funny people in this world. Missionaries, you have no survival sense at all. Missionaries is not going to help you, nope. Anybody else thinking that the locals know what coconut oil is for? And therefore are familiar with moisturising and not getting sunburn? Maybe it's just me. As I said, I've warned you guys. The savage looked at the children. Concealment was impossible. He uttered a shout that was more like oog, goggery, bagwag than anything else the children had ever heard, and at once brown coppery people leapt out of every hut and swarmed like ants about the clearing. There was no time for discussion, and no one wanted to discuss anything anyhow. Whether these coppery people were cannibals or not now seemed to matter very little. Without an instant's hesitation, the 4 children turned and ran back along the forest path. The only pause was Anthea's. She stood back to let Cyril pass because he was carrying the lamb, who screamed with delight. He had not whooping coughed a single once since the carpet landed him on the island. "Gee up, squirrel, gee-gee!" he shouted, and Cyril did gee up. The path was a shorter cut to the beach than the creeper-covered way by which they had come, and almost directly they saw through the trees the shining blue and gold nopal of sea and sand. "Stick to it!" cried Cyril breathlessly. They did stick to it. They tore down the sands. They could hear behind them as they ran the patter of feet which they knew too well were copper-coloured. The sands were golden and opal-coloured and bare. There were reeds of tropical seaweed. There were rich tropic shells of the kind you would not buy in the Kentish town road under at least 15 pence a pair. There were turtles basking lumpily on the water's edge, but no cook, no clothes, and no carpet. On, into the sea," gasped Cyril. "They must hate the water. I've heard savages always dirty." "Oh, dear God, Cyril, what have you been reading?" "Sheesh." She really does rip in to... thank you for that, Kate. Ina's bit really does rip into ignorance. I've seen it, you see it in The Wedding of John Charrington to a certain extent. And in this, very much so. This is seriously, what books have the kids been reading? That they have got some very serious ideas. And assumptions they are making. And I think I was really worried about this. I hadn't quite realised how scathing the phrasing is. Because it's all assumptions the kids are making. And the narrator's backing it up with a tone that if it's not sarcastic, I can't read properly. Frankly, I think the biggest problem is which version of fire are they going to end up inflicting on this poor island? You can imagine your grandmother kept some of your dad's child books, and the ones you remember are not acceptable by modern standards. Yeah, I've got some. I inherited from great aunt or something. Where, yeah, it's not necessarily as flattering as it could be, or as honest as it could be. But at this era, we've got near as damn it mass communications. And we've got they've got the Empire. So there were a lot of people travelling to and fro. This is not a situation where, there are no non-white people in the UK, especially London. We've had multiple waves of immigration by now. So there just seems to be this slight discrepancy between thinking of people who probably they've seen whenever out and about. I mean, they're in Camden, they're not exactly in one of the posher places. And people they just don't know. And they're kind of denigrating the people they don't know and assigning them the status of savages. Which is, rude. But the kids are rude. And no, this isn't me defending Nesbitt. There's a reason I put up warnings about this. Their feet were splashing in the warm shallows before his breathless words were ended. The calm baby waves were easy to go through. It's warm work running for your life in the tropics, and the coolness of the water was delicious. Sharks. They were up to their armpits now, and Jane was up to her chin. Okay, I think that shows you how tall Jane is. Look, said the Phoenix, what are they pointing at? The children turned, and there, a little to the west, was a head they knew with a crooked cap upon it. It was the head of a cook. The only questionable book you remember was about a girl who took ballet lessons to strengthen her legs after illness. The book never says, but she was actually recovering from polio, which is probably because it was so prevalent it would need an explanation. Oh! I think I may have read that. If it's the one I was thinking of, yeah, I was very confused as a kid. I think I may actually have had to ask my mum what the deal was. Hear me out. How many Americans believe the Bible to be a child-appropriate book? Because it really is not. Is really not. Honestly, not surprised. Yeah, the kids' versions of Bibles will tend to get a certain amount of editing going on. So it's a bit of a shock to the system when you go and dig out some of the gorier passages. Okay, hang on. So we've got the cook's head, which I'm really hoping is attached to the cook. Maybe that's just me. The children hurried towards her as quickly as the water would let them. What on earth did you come out here for? Robert shouted. And where on earth's the carpet? It's not on earth, bless you, replied the cook happily. It's under me, in the water. I got a bit warm sitting there in the sun, and I just says, I wish I was in a cold bath, just like that. And next minute, here I was. It's all part of the dream. They make illustrated Bibles for kids, but you haven't compared them to the real version. I used to have one when I was small. Yeah. No Lot getting drunk and sleeping with his adult daughters in the kiddie version of the Bible. Yeah, I always got very puzzled, and I got told off for asking awkward questions by a visiting evangelical type. Such as when I was very small, I did ask exactly who were Cain and Abel married to. And I got told off for that. Apparently I was being rude. I was just being curious. Yep. Two wishes down. Everyone at once saw how extremely fortunate it was that the carpet had had the sense to take the cook to the nearest and largest bath, the sea, and how terrible it would have been had the carpet taken itself and her to the stuffy little bathroom of the house in Camden Town. The cook wished that she was in the cold bath because she was too hot. Excuse me, said the Phoenix's soft voice, breaking in on the general sigh of relief, but I think these brown people want your cook. To eat? Whispered Jane, as well as she could through the water which the plunging lamb was dashing in her face with happy fat hands and feet. You asked that too. You were told God made more people. The Bible just didn't cover that. But yeah, that was the exact explanation I was given. I came to the conclusion that they were extras. They were off in the corner going rhubarb, rhubarb, rhubarb. Hardly, rejoined the bird. Who wants cooks to eat? Cooks are engaged, not eaten. And they wish to engage her. You did not read the Bible, period. Your dad was anti-religious. We had to read it at school. But then we also did things like the basics of Islam and basics of Judaism stuff. And of course, I don't know. I don't think they still do. But when I was in the first year at my grammar school, we actually had the Gideons turn up, and they gave every kid, every girl, a copy of the Gideon Bible, little pocket one. I've still got it kicking around somewhere. It's quite good for reference material. You don't think you've made it all the way through, but you've dipped into bits for educational purposes. Yeah, I also had to do when I did performances and competed in the choir I stayed for, because it was technically Methodist based, because that was where we could get the room. We had to do Bible readings, so you'd be given a chunk of the Bible and you'd have to perform it in the church. You're in high school, but you analysed the King James Bible as literature. Class was called British Literature, so you covered a lot of stuff. Okay, that's interesting. Okay. Part of the King James. No, that would be a long old course doing the entirety of the King James Bible. Right. Okay. I apologise if I'm not keeping up with chat, by the way, but it's quite fascinating. Beowulf to Robert Burns. Good lord. Okay. That's a range. That's definitely speed literature. Sorry, hang on one more. I suppose it should be Beowulf to Bible to Burns. God, that was a proper tip of the tongue and the teeth and the lip. France is LAIC, which means the state and separate from the church and must hold to neutrality. Yeah, it's weird. We have technically, of course, we have a state church. We have a national church. We have a national religion. And yet, Britain is one of the most, I'm not going to say atheistic, but certainly one of the most secular countries there is. Even those who purportedly are Anglican or C of E tend to be births, marriages and deaths. Or as one of my co-workers used to put it, hatched, matched and dispatched. Public prayer and school events, Bible class on Mondays in elementary school. Gosh. And France, religion is not discussed in public school. We didn't. Well, you had to have, or you still do technically, have to have an act of worship every morning, which tends to be singing hymns in assembly. Most of which are now embedded in people's brains because they had to sing them every week. But then they just get on with it. And we had RE, which was literally the educational end of things. So it was learning about religions rather than learning religion, if you see what I mean. It's not an acronym, it's a word like, sorry about that. My apologies. And, then there were like Bible studies groups, but they were in like lunch hour and stuff. So you had the Christian Fellowship or whatever would have their club every Thursday or whatever it is. I will still, never to my dying day will I forget one of them trying to get me to come along and saying, it's going to be really cool, we're doing speaking in tongues this week. Which just, they got really offended when I laughed my arse off. Pretty much means secular, yeah. So it's more the sort of anti-religious rather than the, I suppose, the more neutral end of things. It's where France is messing up. You don't learn about religion. You don't learn about religion either. Yeah. I'm a firm believer in learning about religions. It's alright. It's okay. No worries. Your keyboard's doing the thing. So mine has decided to take against the letter M. I'm having to retype everything at the moment. Okay. I apologise for the digression. I'm a very bad stream manager. And cooks are engaged, not eaten. They wish to engage her. How can you understand what they say? Asked Cyril doubtfully. It's as easy as kissing your claw, replied the bird. I speak and understand all languages, even that of your cook, which is difficult and unpleasing. God, the phoenix is an arse. It's quite easy when you know how it's done. It just comes to you. I should advise you to beach the carpet and land the cook. Land the cargo. The cook, I mean. You can take my word for it, the copper-coloured ones will not harm you now. It was impossible not to take the word of a phoenix when it tells you to. So the children at once got hold of the corners of the carpet and, pulling it from under the cook, towed it slowly in through the shallowing water and at last spread it on the sand. The cook, who had followed, instantly sat down on it, and at once the copper-coloured natives, now strangely humble, formed a ring round the carpet and fell on their faces on the rainbow and gold sand. The tallest savage spoke in this position, which must have been very awkward for him, and Jane noticed that it took him quite a long time to get the sand out of his mouth afterwards. He says, the phoenix remarked after some time, that they wish to engage your cook permanently. Without a character? Asked Anthea, who had heard her mother speak of such things. For context, probably all know this, but without a character is without a character reference. They do not wish to engage her as a cook, but as queen, and queens need not have characters. Ouch. There was a breathless pause. Well, said Cyril, of all the choices. But there's no accounting for taste. Everyone laughed at the idea of cooks being engaged as queen. They couldn't help it. I do not advise laughter, warned the phoenix, ruffling out its golden feathers, which were extremely wet. And it's not their own choice. It seems there is an ancient prophecy of this copper-coloured tribe that a great queen should one day arise out of the sea with a white crown on her head, and, well, you see, there's the crown. It pointed its claw at Cook's cap, and a very dirty cap it was, because it was the end of the week. That's the white crown, it said. At least it's nearly white. Very white indeed compared to the colour they are. Thank you. And anyway, it's quite white enough. Cyril addressed the cook. Look here, he said. These brown people want you to be their queen. They're only savages, and they don't know any better. Wow, Cyril. Good Lord. Sheesh. Oh, he's just going out all out to insult everybody, isn't he? I honest to God don't know which is worse. The fact that he's still being incredibly rude about these people, or that he's using it to insult the cook, whose life they have frankly made an utter misery. Little arsonist imperialist drat waffle, yeah. Definitely he's had very little contact with the real world, hasn't he? Now, would you really like to stay? Or, if you'll promise not to be so jolly aggravating at home, and not to tell anyone a word about today, we'll take you back to Camden Town. Cyril needs to be fed the spiciest Thai food until he learns better, and that's your kindest take. Oh, please don't get into Britain conquered the empire for spices and then never used it, because that's bullshit, but please don't make that joke. I've absolutely had it up to the eyeballs with that one. But no, he needs a sitting down and... Oh, God. Just, I don't know, somebody in the know and showing him an atlas. A tour through the encyclopedia. Something, anything. Other than whatever the hell he's been reading. And what I love is this is presented as, would you like to stay here and be a queen? And, in wonderful weather that you would never see in Camden Town. Or, would you like to come back with us and we'd be absolute bastards to you again? You missed that, sorry. You just meant he needs to experience more of the world. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, it's okay. It's I know it's an old joke, but dear God, it's one that recently seems to be popping up on my feed all over the bloody place. And it's really annoying. Because it's twaddle. But no, absolutely, Cyril needs a bit more grounding, and also not to have quite the confidence to speak out that everything he's read in storybooks is apparently true. He's not quite as considered as he could be. And the others are taking his word for things, largely because he is the oldest. And as a result, he's going to have had access to, the more colourful books, shall we say. Although, frankly, I wouldn't be putting it past this lot to have raided their father's library if he has one. No, you don't, said the cook in firm, undoubting tones. I've always wanted to be the queen, God bless her, and I always thought what a good one I should make, and now I'm going to. If it's only in a dream, it's well worthwhile. And I don't go back to that nasty underground kitchen and me blame for everything that I don't. Not until the dream's finished and I wake up with that nasty bell hanging in my ears, so I tell you. And I'm not doing an Irish accent because I'm very sorry. No. Are you sure, Anthea anxiously asked the Phoenix, that she'll be quite safe here? Anthea, bless your heart. The only person who's actually concerned about the cook. She will find the nest of a queen a very precious and soft thing, said the bird solemnly. There, you hear, said Cyril. You're in for a precious soft thing, so mind you're a good queen, cook. It's more than you'd any right to expect, but long may you reign. Wow! Good grief, can we just drown Cyril? Sheesh. He's awful. Sorry, I'm not supposed to be judging. What carnage these children would have wrought with unsupervised internet access. Oh dear God. You're beginning to see why corporal punishment was popular. Oh, not concerned enough to make her life easier at him. Yeah. Oh, good Lord. Yeah, no, I know. Anthea, I'm trying to remember how old Anthea is. I think she's supposed to be 12. Go on easy, Cyril. It's 1904 and World War I's only 19 years away. God, that's a thought. Yeah. There is genuinely a thought, of course. Cyril will be in his early 30s. Sorry, yes, no, early 20s. So I can add up. So there's a thought. And not being particularly posh, probably likely to suffer being in the ranks. Almost certainly, almost certainly enlisting. These kids need scouts, dance lessons, martial arts, art lessons, anything to keep them busy and engaged. It's odd. The children are largely left to their own devices, but the father works all hours. And the mother does things like she goes to gallery openings and she meets with friends for coffee and stuff. But there's nobody kind of keeping an eye on the kids. They do go to normal school, so they are mostly causing trouble evenings and weekends. But there is a definite babysitting gap where they seem to be largely left to their own devices. Where are we? Some of the cook's copper-coloured subjects now advanced from the forest with long garlands of beautiful flowers, white and sweet-scented, and hung them respectfully around the neck of their new sovereign. What? All them lovely bouquets for me? Exclaimed the enraptured cook. Well, this here is something like a dream, I must say. She sat up very straight on the carpet, and the copper-coloured ones, themselves wreathed in garlands of the gayest flowers, madly stuck parrot feathers in their hair and began to dance. It was a dance such as you've never seen. It made the children feel almost sure that the cook was right and they were all in a dream. Small, strange-shaped drums were beaten, odd-sounding songs were sung, and the dance got faster and faster and odder till at last all the dancers fell on the sand, tired out. The new queen, with her white crown cap all on one side, clapped wildly. "Bravo!" she cried. "Bravo! It's better than the Albert Edward Music Hall in the Kentish Town Road. Go it again." But the phoenix would not translate this request into the copper-coloured language, and when the savages had recovered their breath, they implored their queen to leave her white escort and come with them to their huts. "The finest shall be yours, O queen," said they. "Well, so long," said the cook, getting heavily onto her feet, when the phoenix had translated this request. "No more kitchens and attics for me, thank you. I'm off to my royal palace, I am, and I only wish this here dream would keep on going for ever and ever." She picked up the ends of the garlands that trailed around her feet, and the children had one last glimpse of her striped stockings and worn elastic-sided boots, before she disappeared into the shadow of the forest, surrounded by her dusky retainers, singing songs of rejoicing as they went. Does Cyril get the eldest son exemption, or I guess after a point it didn't matter? I would need to check. That's something I'd actually have to look into. But the recruitment drives initially were, God, propaganda central. If you've never seen Oh What a Lovely War, I can heartily recommend it, but also bring tissues. Because it's a lot. Well, said Cyril, I suppose she's all right, but they don't seem to count us for much, one way or the other. No, they've met you. Oh, said the phoenix, they think you're merely dreams. The prophecy said that the queen would arise from the waves with a white crown and surrounded by white dream children. That's about what they think you are. What about dinner? Said Robert abruptly. There won't be any dinner with no cook and no pudding basin, Anthea reminded him, but there's always bread and butter. Let's get home, said Cyril. The lamb was furiously unwishful to be dressed in his warm clothes again, but Anthea and Jane managed it by force disguised as coaxing, and he never once whooping coughed. Then everyone put on its own warm things and took its place on the carpet. A sound of uncouth singing still came from beyond the trees, where the copper-coloured natives were crooning songs of admiration and respect to their white-crowned queen. Then Anthea said, "Home," just as duchesses and other people do to their coachmen, and the intelligent carpet in one whirling moment laid itself down in its proper place on the nursery floor. And at that very moment Eliza opened the door and said, "Cook's gone. I can't find her anywhere, and there's no dinner ready. Oh, they have got another servant. Of course, they've got Eliza. They've got the maid. She hasn't taken her box, nor yet her outdoor things. She just ran out to see the time, I shouldn't wonder. The kitchen clock never did give her satisfaction, and she got run over or fell down in a fit as likely as not. You'll have to put up with the old cold bacon for your dinners, and what on earth you've got your outdoor things on for, I don't know. And then I'll slip out and see if they know anything about her at the police station." But nobody ever knew anything about the cook any more, except the children, and later one other person. Mother was so upset at losing the cook, and so anxious about her, that Anthea felt most miserable, as though she had done something very wrong indeed. My God, a conscience! She woke several times in the night, and at last decided she would ask the phoenix to let her tell her mother all about it. But there was no opportunity to do this next day, because the phoenix, as usual, had gone to sleep in some out-of-the-way spot, after asking as a special favour not to be disturbed for 24 hours. The lamb never whooping coughed once all that Sunday, and mother and father said what good medicine it was that the doctor had given him, but the children knew it was the southern shore where you can't have whooping cough that had cured him. The lamb babbled of coloured sand and water, but no one took any notice of that. He often talked of things that hadn't happened. It was on Monday morning, very early indeed, that Anthea woke and suddenly made up her mind. She crept downstairs in her nightgown, it was very chilly, sat down on the carpet, and with a beating heart wished herself on the sunny shore where you can't have whooping cough. And the next moment there she was. The sand was splendidly warm. She could feel it at once even through the carpet. She folded the carpet and put it over her shoulders like a shawl, for she was determined not to be parted from it for a single instant, no matter how hot it might be to wear. Then, trembling a little and trying to keep up her courage by saying over and over, "It's my duty, it is my duty," she went up the forest path. "Well, here you are again," said the cook directly she saw Anthea. "This dream does keep on." The cook was dressed in a white robe. She had no shoes or stockings and no cap, and she was sitting under a screen of palm leaves, for it was afternoon in the island and blazing hot. She wore a flower wreath on her hair, and copper-coloured boys were fanning her with peacock feathers. "I got the cat put away," she said. "They seem to think a lot of it. Never saw one before, I expect." "Are you happy?" asked Anthea, panting. The sight of the cook as queen quite took her breath away. "I'll believe you, my dear," said the cook heartily. "Nothing to do unless you want to, but I'm getting rested now. Tomorrow I'm going to start cleaning out my hut if the dream keeps on, and I shall teach them cooking. They burns everything to a cinder now unless they eats it raw." "But can you talk to them?" "Lord love a duck, yes," the happy cook queen replied. "It's quite easy to pick up. I always thought I should be quick at foreign languages. I've taught them to understand dinner, and I want a drink, and you leave me be already." "Then you don't want anything?" Anthea asked earnestly and anxiously. "Not me, miss, except if only you'd go away. I'm afraid of me waking up with that Bella going if you keep on stopping her here talking to me. Long as this here dream keeps up, I'm as happy as a queen." "Goodbye, then," said Anthea, gaily, for her conscience was clear now. She hurried into the wood, threw herself on the ground, and said, "Home," and there she was, rolled in the carpet on the nursery floor. "She's all right, anyhow," said Anthea, and went back to bed. "I'm glad somebody's pleased, but Mother will never believe me when I tell her." The story is indeed a little difficult to believe. Still, you might try. Right. Where are we? That was chapter 3. What do you think? Oh dear. The implication's quite strong that no, the cook has no family. There's no mention of her going to visit them. Probably has friends, because she's, she gets her days off. She gets to go and do things. This is wilder than you remember when reading it as a kid. There is so much in there. There is so much there. Yeah, the text does need discussion. There is a reason I warned for it. It is very much presented as the children being ignorant, isn't it? The assumption they are savages. Rather than just people who live in a different place and don't have manufactured goods so much. And I just love that the cook, putting some effort in, is able to communicate, or has been able to communicate with the locals, her new subjects, and have adapted to live in a way that works in their specific environment, yeah. Which the cook does seem to be adapting to. But yeah, I love that she's starting to pick up the language, because she's put some effort in. And the kids aren't. The children aren't horrible. You don't see a lot of malice in them, but they're certainly characters. Yeah, they feel very real. I don't think there's malice in them at all, yeah. I've read stories which have far more objectionable children. Eustace in the Narnia books is far, far worse initially, until he has his obligatory epiphany and decides that actually he's a nice person. No malice but casual bigotry you'd be finding books and among grown-ups of the era. So much of that went over your heads as a kid, same sort of thing as the Indian in the cupboard. Yeah, the Indian in the cupboard's an interesting one. Yeah. I'm trying to remember, was that another Nesbit, or am I misremembering? Excuse me while I check. Again, that was another one that was adapted for children's TV. I can spell The Indian in the Cupboard. We ignore the film because that's an American one. I think it's British. Oh no. 1980! Good grief. I would have pegged it as much older. No, it wasn't Nesbitt. The Indian in the Cupboard was Lynn Reed Banks. Yep, written by a Brit. I think to a certain extent, the fact that the film adaptation was American kinda missed the point, if you see what I mean. It took being turned into a wounded dragon by a curse for Eustace to be less of a demon. Yeah, exactly. It did take a lot. He was absolutely objectionable for most of the book. You had that extra layer of culture clash in The Indian in the Cupboard. Because, of course, it was a British kid and a, quote, Indian. If you've not reread The Indian in the Cupboard, maybe you don't want to. The rest of the series was wild. I didn't even know it had sequels. Good lord, the last one was 1998. Crumbs. Those are not eligible, I will tell you now, for book club. When plastic toys are locked in the cupboard, they become real living beings, resulting in Omri befriending an 18th century Iroquois. Okay. Yes, it hoiks people out of history. A cupboard that hoiks people out of history. Good lord. That was when you learned the word lorry. Really? I suppose, yeah, it's truck, isn't it, in the US? Huh, okay. I would have been willing to hand on heart swear that that was an older story, an older book than 1980. That's a lot. Okay, interesting. So yes, it does seem to be less that they're reanimated plastic figures, and they are actually people who have been pinched out of history and embodied as miniatures, living miniatures. Concept is great, the execution less so nowadays. Your US, you don't use lorry. You think Night at the Museum does it better for these days? That's fair enough. Night at the Museum's a bit farcical for me. I know that's what it's for, but I've remembered a lot about the Indian in the Cupboard, and I seem to recall that there is a bit of a panic involving someone getting shot and needing first aid from other figures. If I recall correctly, and I'm not going digging for it now, but I have a feeling that there is a cavalryman, US cavalryman, who rather glories over watching a film involving Amerindians getting slaughtered, and as a result, the eponymous Indian gets rather annoyed and shoots him, and then feels bad about it and has to try and save his life. Gets a World War I medic toy to do the healing. Yes, yeah, that was it. I remembered that he cast about rather desperately, because although the Indian could do first aid, he couldn't actually treat him properly. So they get a toy soldier medic to do it. which is fun. And also, quite, as I said, quite disturbing, because it's literally hoiking people out of their timeline to give the kids someone to talk to. Boone, that was it. Yes, the name of the cavalryman was Boone. Now I am getting very tempted to look it up, because I think I had the book. Mind you, I think everybody had the book. But yeah, I am vaguely surprised that it was 1980. Okay, so. You're conflating Boone with Jed from Night at the Museum. Unfortunately, I don't know that well enough. I've only seen it the once. Right, it is nearly 9 o'clock. We have been going for an hour and a half. Now, I had planned to do some Sherlock Holmes Chapter 1. However, I'd also planned to start a lot sooner. Would people like to end it there, read the next chapter, or jump straight across to Sherlock Holmes? Because I honestly don't know, because we're getting quite late. I'm not sure if I've got the time and energy to establish a new stream, if you see what I mean. So it's basically end it here or carry on to do the next chapter. Which, either way, I am good. But I will leave it up to chat. I don't mind simply carrying this on next week if that's what you'd rather. Yes, I am willing to edit this on. Slight preference for ending there. You have to get up in 6 hours. Oh, okay. Okie dokie. Right, in that case, yes, I will end it here. I will end it all. I will end it here. I've just realised that the YouTube stream there's got a bloody great typo in. Why does this happen? Why do typos lurk like ninja? They're not there until you hit post, and then suddenly, bam. No, that's perfectly reasonable, Chrono, if you're falling asleep. I'm not going to bore people. But I don't think I'm now up to the performance level needed for a game stream. I apologise for that. So, thank you so much. It has been an absolute time this week. And I did kind of apologise for how horrible I have been about the children. Because, Jesus wept. So, yes, next chapter, which we will do next week, she says, when she can find Acrobat, seems to give some time to their mother. Which should be interesting. What's the line? Mother really was a great dear. She was pretty and she was loving and most frightfully good when you were ill and always kind and almost always just. That covers a lot, doesn't it? That's a nice person, but it's a very real person. It's not your stereotypical good mother as opposed to bad mother. It's a lovely person who's probably got her own thing going on. And I'm quite looking forward to getting to know her a little bit better. Right, so you reckon the kids deserve the roasting I give them? Okay. Right, okay then, so next week, Chapter 4, 2 Bazaars. And I do apologise for not twigging that Cook was Irish early enough. Sorry. Everybody is London now. It is contagious. So, thank you very much. And yep, thank you very much for posting the link there, Molly. If you'd like to support the channel, and of course this is for both live and any YouTube viewers, then kofi.com/Druttercup is the way to go these days. And at the moment, all donations I get are going towards financing prescriptions for my ADHD medication, which I kind of really still really want to be taking. So any help is very much appreciated going towards that. If you're not already subscribed to my YouTube channel, even if you are a follower on Twitch, then I would really appreciate it if you could subscribe to my YouTube. One day I hope to monetize my streams, but I will have to sit on myself for language when I do. But that requires, I think, 50 concurrent viewers. And since I've only got 100 odd subscribers at the moment, I don't know that that's going to happen anytime soon. So yeah, it would be nice just to get some more subscribers and maybe chuck some likes on there if you are happy with the stuff I've been doing. I am Druttercup on YouTube as well as on Twitch. I'm easy to find, or unimaginative. That's okay. It's absolutely fine. Thank you very much for the sub, Molly. But yes, it would just be nice to try and boost that channel up a bit. I'd like to give myself more options than simply Twitch. Thank you very much, Jesper's Tales. Much appreciated. It's lovely to have you in chat. So, okay, I will let you go, and I will go back to mildly celebrating that I've won a spot in the Sinking City 2 video game audio with a horrible eldritch piece of recording, which was a lovely thing to find out today. So I will put up with a lot for a game credit. Okay, so thank you very much. I will leave you to it and see you next week. Ta-da!